When my parents handed the keys of my six-figure boutique marketing startup to my golden child younger sister, they looked me dead in the eye and said, "Family shares, Maya. You're smart. You can always build another one, but your sister needs this to survive." They didn't just steal my company. They hijacked my client roster, locked me out of my own bank accounts, and laughed as I walked away with $0 and a ruined credit score. Everyone thought I was finished. But 10 years later, my sister invited our entire family to a high-profile corporate gala to celebrate her firm's historic buyout, only to turn completely white when the lead venture capitalist walked onto the stage. Welcome to BT Revenge Tales, where betrayal meets its match and karma always collects its debt. If you love stories where entitlement crashes and burns, make sure to like, subscribe, and drop your city in the comments below. My name is Maya, and at 32 years old, looking back at my 22-year-old self feels like looking at a stranger who is blinded by loyalty. Straight out of college, I spent 18 hours a day surviving on cold coffee and instant noodles to build Vanguard Digital, a boutique branding agency. Within 2 years, I scaled it to 6 figures, securing lucrative contracts with regional tech firms. Meanwhile, my younger sister, Chloe, the undisputed golden child of the family, dropped out of her 3rd semester, flatly refused entry-level jobs, and spent her days complaining about her lack of direction. One Sunday evening, my parents called me over for what I assumed was a regular family dinner. The moment I sat down, my father slid a corporate transfer contract across the table. Chloe sat beside him with an entitled smirk. "Chloe is taking over as CEO and sole owner on Monday," my mother declared casually. When I laughed, thinking it was a cruel joke, my father's face hardened. Because he had co-signed my initial commercial office lease and early business registration papers, he had quietly restructured the entity behind my back. Overnight, they legally locked me out of everything I had built. The morning after that ambush, the real nightmare began. My mother didn't just take the keys. She launched a ruthless smear campaign. She called every single one of my Tier 1 clients, feeding them a fabricated story that I had suffered a severe nervous breakdown and that Chloe was stepping in out of sheer sisterly love. By noon, my access to the company email, bank accounts, and cloud servers was completely severed. I was left stranded with empty accounts, zero equity, and $10,000 in personal credit card debt that I had taken out to fund our initial client campaigns. Desperate and humiliated, I drove back to my parents' house, begging them to see reason, to leave me at least a fraction of the portfolio I had bled for. My father didn't even open the security gate. He spoke through the intercom, his voice dripping with condescension. "Stop being so selfish, Maya. Chloe needs this. You're smart. You can figure it out." Standing on that driveway, the tears finally stopped. I blocked their numbers, erased my social media, packed my bags, and vanished into total silence. Over the next few years, Chloe proved that having the title of CEO means nothing without the discipline to back it up. Incapable of managing real campaigns or delivering on deadlines, she burned through the agency's cash reserves on lavish business trips, luxury influencer dinners, and a fleet of leased sports cars. Within 3 years, my original, loyal clients fled in disgust. Meanwhile, 3,000 miles away in New York, I started from scratch under the radar. I took a low-profile consulting gig by day and quietly engineered an enterprise-level B2B SaaS platform by night. That single venture grew into a formidable private holding company specializing in acquiring distressed corporate assets. Back home, Chloe was drowning. Rather than admitting defeat, she doubled down on reckless vanity, keeping the business afloat by taking out high-interest merchant cash advances and predatory private loans. To protect their golden child from total public humiliation, my parents quietly mortgaged their 4-bedroom suburban retirement home to the hilt, securing Chloe's mounting debt against their own future. On social media, Chloe posted photos of designer outfits and champagne toasts, pretending to be a self-made mogul. In reality, her empire was a house of cards waiting for the slightest breeze. A decade after the day they stole my company, Chloe reached the absolute end of the line. The creditors were circling, the merchant loans were in default, and the bank was preparing to foreclose on my parents' mortgaged home. Then, what looked like a miracle dropped straight out of the sky. An elite private equity firm named Vanguard Horizon surfaced out of nowhere, offering a stunning, multi-million-dollar buyout for the agency. The deal was aggressive and comprehensive. It promised to absorb every single liability, pay off all associated family debts in full, and hand Chloe an 8-figure exit package. Convinced she had finally proved her business genius to the world, Chloe, flanked by our ecstatic parents, booked the grand ballroom at the 5-star St. Regis Hotel in San Francisco. They invited high-profile investors, industry executives, local press, and every distant relative they had ever boasted to, calling it the Crown Jewel Acquisition Gala. Dressed in custom couture and bathed in flashing camera lights, Chloe stood by the podium sipping champagne, while my mother bragged loudly to nearby guests about raising an entrepreneurial prodigy. Suddenly, the master of ceremonies stepped up to the microphone, his voice booming over the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, please direct your attention to the main stage as we welcome the sole owner and managing partner of Vanguard Horizon." The heavy velvet curtains parted, and I stepped out under the blinding spotlight in a custom-tailored emerald silk suit. A sharp gasp shattered the polite applause. Down in the front row, Chloe's crystal flute slipped from her fingers, shattering on the polished parquet floor. The crimson champagne splattered across the hem of her designer gown, but she didn't even look down. Her face drained of all color, eyes wide with sheer, suffocating terror. Beside her, my father froze mid-laugh, his champagne glass suspended in the air, while my mother clutched her pearl necklace as if struggling for air. 10 years of silence evaporated into a pin-drop, quiet room. I took the microphone from the podium, adjusting the stand with deliberate calm. "Good evening, distinguished guests," my voice echoed clearly across the grand ballroom. "Many of you are here tonight expecting to witness the golden celebration of an historic corporate acquisition. But Vanguard Horizon didn't step in to rescue a thriving firm." I turned my gaze directly toward the paralyzed front row, meeting Chloe's horrified stare. We didn't buy Chloe's agency to elevate it. Over the past 90 days, my firm quietly bought out every single defaulted promissory note, every predatory merchant loan, and all the toxic debt this company has generated. The room erupted into frantic whispers as 2 corporate bailiffs stepped forward, placing a thick stack of legal notices on the main table. Every single contract my sister signed over the last 5 years, I continued calmly into the microphone, personally pledged my parents' estate, their retirement funds, and every asset in this room as collateral for her lifestyle. My father lurched forward, his face flushed purple with desperate rage. "Maya, what is the meaning of this? We are your parents. You cannot do this to your own family." "As the sole holder of your defaulted loans," I replied, my voice steady and cold, "I am exercising my full legal right to foreclose on the debts immediately. Chloe's agency is dissolved as of tonight, its remaining assets seized, and full repayment is due in 30 days. Chloe fell to her knees in tears, sobbing, "Please, Maya, have mercy, we're blood." I looked down at them without a trace of remorse. "Family shares, Chloe. Remember?" Within 2 months, the legal dust finally settled. The court liquidated Chloe's failed agency, the suburban home was seized by the bank, and Chloe was forced to pick up long retail shifts at a suburban department store to service her personal default judgments. I reclaimed my original branding rights and folded them into my thriving multi-million-dollar empire, finally closing that painful chapter on my own terms. Now, tell me, would you have shown mercy, or did they get what they deserved? Drop your thoughts, comment your city, and tap the next story on your screen.